Here we have the foam core mock-up for Dunno Storage solutions. It's been here for over a year, and this month's main project is to turn it into a proper structure. The plan is to use parts from 2 Walters Champion packing plants to build it. Because I want a 5-story structure, my intention is to cut the 3rd floor out of some wall sections from one building and insert it into the middle of the other one. The most challenging part, I think, is going to be the elevator towers. What I plan to do there is to keep the styling around the windows, but just fill them in with brick panels. And hopefully I can make it look as though it was built that way, instead of windows that were bricked up later. So anyway, I need to get out the razor store and start cutting up these wall sections. I'll check in with you again later. Well, I spent a good portion of yesterday working on the walls for Dunno Storage. I cut up the main wall sections from 2 Champion packing plants. As you can see, I've made it into a 5-story building from 4. This front wall is also a lot longer than the packing plant in the kit. I'm actually surprised at how sturdy it is without any rear bracing. Basically, the plan of attack was to cut the top story off of one set of wall sections and discard it. Well, I say discard it, I'm still going to use most of it, and then add a 2-story section from more walls so that this 3rd floor is now repeated. I added this strip of 60 by 156 styrene to mirror the architectural details on this floor. Originally it was supposed to run all the way across in one piece, but unfortunately I had to break these joints apart because it wasn't quite lining up properly. Here we have the 1 elevator tower. I haven't added the top floor yet, mainly because there is going to be some detailed trim around here which is going to go all the way around the elevator. And then I'm going to add the extra walls to the top of that. Anyway, I have a visitor. This is Duke. Hey Duke, say hi to the viewers. I think he wants his food, even though it's way too early to feed him. Here's the other elevator tower. This one only has 2 walls because the back is going to be against the backdrop. The other elevator, of course, having to have 3 walls. What else can I tell you? Oh yeah, the door spacing. I tried various combinations before I started cutting the parts. I would like to have had doors in every bay except this one, but I couldn't quite do that without cutting everything apart and basically going back to individual panels. I might brick this door up and put a window in there because the end wall shows an office, so I think that'd be a little bit interesting. And I guess there could be some reason why there's no door on these 2 panels. Maybe there's some machinery behind it or something like that. Anyway, I originally estimated that I was going to have 1 long side and 1 short side wall from the 2nd kit untouched. But I ended up using pretty much all of it. Mainly because the elevator towers consumed a lot more kit parts than I thought they would. I wanted to take the architectural details that we have on the front wall and extend it around the towers. So to do that I had to use regular window walls and then brick up the windows. I've still got some filling to do in a few places. But anyway, the next step is to assemble the walls. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Well, I've put together the 3 sub-assemblies. That's the main walls and the 2 elevator towers. I'm going to let them set up a little bit and go hard because some of the corners are still a little bit weak. I don't want to strain them yet. That will give me time to cut some floor and roof sections to really brace it up solid. Well, I'm about 3 days into this project now. I've got the main walls assembled. I've got the coping installed. I used 2 layers of styrene strip. I started with a piece of 60 by 156 and then did some 40 by 188. Then the elevator towers went on top of that, and then repeat the coping detail on top of the elevator towers. This tower was fairly straightforward because the complicated side is hidden. I didn't have to build it. This one, the panel with the door, I had to cobble that together from about 6 different pieces. Anyway, I decided it was time for a test fit, just to make sure that I don't have to do any more trimming. So here's the back of the building. Remember earlier I said I had problems with getting that wall straight? Well, I ended up using a strip of the roof. If you look at the back detail here, you can see why I always make sure my beams are a little way in from the edge. I normally have them about 1/8 of an inch back, which was fine here, but because the backdrop's not straight, I had to shave it off here. And if my stiffener had been right on the edge, I would have had to have dismantled it. As it was, all I had to do was cut the roof off. Welcome back. This is what the building looks like at the end of day 4. Well, almost the end of day 4. I still have a little bit more time. The next thing I want to work on is the canopy over the loading dock. I need to get that built as a sub-assembly but not attached. And then there's some stuff I want to build to put on the roof. I think I might modify the rooftop cooler that came in one of the kits. Open it out and make it look about twice the size. Going to assemble a water tank. And I'll see what else I'll put on the roof. I haven't decided yet. With the completion of the walls, I've been turning my attention to other parts. The largest of those being the loading dock and the canopy that goes over it. Now, because of the position of my elevator tower, I had to build a loading dock that was wider than the one that came in the kit, which meant that in turn the roof was no longer wide enough. I also put in some railings. Those are from the Central Valley fence pack. In addition to the canopy, I also need some roof details. Here's one of the cooling towers that I built up more or less as intended, apart from cutting the back corner off so that it would fit against the backdrop. I also left the ladder off because it's grossly over scale, and I figured the most logical place for it would be at the back anyway, where it's not going to be seen. Anyway, to hide the narrow end where I trimmed it, I've built another part here. I figured an aftermarket, subsidiary, cooling system with some duct work that will obscure where it hits the backdrop, and another piece of duct work will go along there, hiding the seam between roof and backdrop. I'm going to get those painted before I install them. Also on the roof, since I used the roof that came with the kit, I ended up with some vent bases molded in. If I put them in as intended, they wouldn't be visible behind the parapet, so I extended them. I figure I may as well have the vents as not have them. And then the water tower, I started off building that as intended, but the center pipe was missing in the kit, so I fabricated one. The corner pieces were too short, so I added styrene strip instead. Then I scratch built a safety railing to go around the maintenance platform. I made the safety railing on the flat because I figured it'd be a lot easier. I started off by calculating the exact length that I needed. I made a template on a piece of paper. Then I taped 2 pieces of styrene strip for the rails, and then added all the posts in. And when that was dry, I cut it away from the paper and wrapped it around into the ring, overlapping it slightly at the back, and then just dropped it over the lid of the water tower and carefully attached each post one at a time. A lot easier than trying to do it in situ. Anyway, once again, I haven't bothered with a ladder because the only place the ladder can be on this building is right at the back where you're not going to see it, and by leaving it off I can keep the railing all the way around so it tends to support itself. I was planning on painting it today, but then I had a thought. I've got all this area inside the building, so what I'm going to do is make this door open and put a warehouse interior in it. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier, one other thing that I did while I was working on the loading dock was bricked up this freight door here and put a window in. I figure with the panel I used on the end, that corner needs to be an office, so I changed that. And rather than cut the whole panel out and redo it, I decided to make it look as though it was a remodel, just for a little bit of interest. Before I can build an interior, I've got to set up one of the doors so it can open. So to do that, the first thing I had to do was cut away the frame. I will need to save that and install it in the opening later. And then I cut off the bottom flange of the door. That can be discarded. And then I separated the two doors so they can now open. Well, I have a rough outline of an interior. Don't know how well you can see it. But looking through the door here, I've got an office wall and 3 columns. Got plenty of floor area here. Most of that is just going to be crammed with crates, and I'll just make sure I stack freight in there high enough that I can't see anything that's not there that's supposed to be. Of course, that will have to be done after painting. At the moment, the whole thing is detachable. And there it is. Well, that's the main construction work done. Part 2 of this series will deal with painting, weathering, and adding details. So don't go away, and I will see you again next week. Thanks for watching.